Yeah.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Hi. This is a Facebook Live discussion hosted by PSDA. That's the Print Services and Distribution Association. My name is Darren Painter, and I'm the editor-in-chief of PS Magazine, which is published by PSDA. If you didn't know, PSDA is getting ready to hold its big annual event, which is called P2P Technology and Innovation Summit. It will be October 23rd through the 25th. So grab your calendar, mark it down, October 23rd through the 25th at the lovely Galt House Hotel in Louisville, Kentucky. All of us at PSDA and Corey, who's with us today, I'll introduce you in a second. We encourage you to register for the event. Everything you need to know about the show is at one place, and that's psda.org/P2P. And 2 is a numeral, so P2P. Once again, that's psda.org/P2P. We'd love to have you there. When you come, you will see this guy. Corey Perlman will be the keynote speaker there. His presentation is called Social Selling. He's going to help distributors and manufacturers get a step-by-step process for winning business on social media. We'll talk all about that during this Facebook Live discussion. Some stuff to know about Corey. I'm sure there's way more than I'm about to say, Corey. But the Cliff Note version for us is you're the best-selling author of 2 books. One's called eBootcamp, and one's called Social Media Overload. They're back there, right on cue. By the way, Social Media Overload should be read by every 14-year-old, including probably my son Gibson.
Yes.
For more than a decade, he has helped clients generate leads, build credibility, close sales, and turn happy customers into longtime advocates. So hello, Corey. Thanks for joining us now.
Darren, thanks for having me, man. Super happy to be here.
Yeah, we're looking forward to your presentation. A lot of buzz about it already online and through the grapevine. So tell us a little bit about you. What's your main background and what are you passionate about?
Yeah, so I started my career actually with General Motors back in 2000. They were right when the internet was kind of kicking off, and their car dealers were trying to figure out how to do commerce over the internet. And so we did a 60-city tour teaching car dealers about internet marketing, which is what the big term was at the time, SEO and some of that stuff. And from there, over the 6 or 7 years, I just realized that people were getting the message, and it was really about telling the layman how to do this really technical stuff, right? Especially back then. And so I wrote the book eBootcamp, which is back here somewhere, and it was really kind of all the components of that training program into the book. And it started hitting all kinds of different industries, real estate, attorneys. It didn't matter. It was still all the basics of internet marketing. And then as the years went on, social media became prominent, and still the same thing existed where businesses didn't understand how to use it effectively. And so my job was to kind of translate all this jargon that you see out on the web and in the world and in newspapers and all that, and turn it into real business strategies. And so that's what Social Media Overload's all about. And I just got a real passion for helping small to medium-sized businesses figure out digital and help, grow their business.
Got it. A lot of those people will be in the audience in Louisville. I feel like most of the distributors that will be in the audience, and primarily they'll be distributors, but they'll also be manufacturers of printed products there. There's a lot of ways for them to get in front of people. I mean, all the traditional methods of marketing, social media now, and others. But it seems like social media has really gotten a lot of momentum, especially in the last few years. Those kinds of ads are driving me places. From a 2020 perspective, what's your take on the overall importance of the media, of social media, for marketing, for businesses like the ones that will be at P2P?
Yeah, it's a good question and a fair question. And I don't think it's fair just to assume that every business needs to be there and every business needs to be on all platforms. I think my take on it is that today's day and age, every business needs to have a web presence of some kind, right? I think that's fair to say, and I think that the majority. There's probably an industry out there that doesn't need it, but this industry does. The question really is about where do we prioritize our time? There's so much to do, there's 7 social media channels we could talk about, not to mention your website, your blog, your YouTube channel, email marketing, so on and so forth, podcast. So I think the biggest question for this industry is where do you focus your time and attention on? And I'm a big proponent of prioritizing your platforms, focusing on a few and doing them really well. And so I think that, as you think about who your buyer is, right? Are they, 30 and below? Are they 40 and above? Are they C-level folks? Are they companies? Things of that nature. That helps direct and dictate which sites you should focus on. And, I'll steal a little of my thunder during the presentation. PHIL is the acronym I often use for most of the industries I talk to, and I think yours is the same. Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn are going to be the platforms that you're going to spend the most time on. The question is, what do we do on those, and how do we make the most use of our time? So we will definitely dive into that during my presentation.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, a lot of the folks in the audience have started down the path of social media. They might have a toe in the water, so to speak, but I don't know if many have dived in. And I think one of the I remember talking to a lot of distributors over the last couple of years. A couple of them specifically come to mind, that all they wanted to do was start a blog. They knew they had to start a blog because Joe down the street had started a blog and it was getting a little bit of traction. Or let's have a video YouTube channel. And so like the end goal was to just get this up. And then they sat dormant, for a year, or they were posted like once or twice. There's a lot out there. There's a heck of a lot of noise in social media. I'm thinking of just the ones I digest, like Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn primarily. It seems like there's nuggets of gold there in the business to business community. Good ebooks that I've downloaded because I've clicked on something. Cool content that makes me think, oh, this person knows what he's talking about X. But there's a lot of crap. There's a lot of crap on social media. How can businesses kind of cut through that clutter and produce content so discerning viewers say, hey, this is actually important for me. I am going to click on this. I'm going to absorb it. I'm going to do something about the content.
Yeah, and let me address your first point, which I think was a really good one, which is a lot of us did that in the early stages, whether it be a blog or Snapchat or some sort of new shiny social media site. We think we've got to be there, so we put something on there. But if you think about the first reason we're doing it, it actually is very counterintuitive to why you did it. And that is, we want to build credibility. We want, when people see it, we want them to be impressed by it, and then we want to move them. This whole presentation I'm going to do is on social selling. And after they've heard about you in some form or fashion, they are going to kick your tires online. So if they go to this blog that you created and there's no content there, or there's content from 3 years ago, what is that doing? Is that doing you more harm than good? Probably. If anything, it's putting doubt into their mind, saying, well, gosh, I mean, are these guys still in existence? Or are they, are they around? You don't want that.
Better not to have one, right, than have one and not publish anything on it.
Absolutely. Better not to have one. Same thing with Snapchat. Same thing with any social media site. If you're just out there and you're not doing it, I think it's more harm than good. So that's the first thing, is I would prefer you not to be there than to be there and be, a ghost town and not posting, not communicating, not active. Your second question about, how do you get above the noise? I think the big question that we all have to address and figure out is, how do we offer value to our audience? What are the burning questions that your tribe, the people that are interested in your products and services and may or may not follow you, what's valuable to them? What are they thinking about? What are they, what is driving them nuts from a business perspective that you guys can help them with? And that's where I would start, So I always ask my audience, what are 3 frequently asked questions that you get all the time?
Interesting.
From prospects and customers. Answer that as a start to what your content should be.
Yeah, and it seems like you're a big advocate of companies knowing about their customers as a starting point. or maybe better yet, who their ultimate like best type of customer is prior to doing that. You mentioned something really interesting right now, which is about the type of content. It does seem like, correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like early social media posts were very advertising. This is my self-placed pedestal. We're the best at labels. Click here, you know? And it seems like there has been a sophistication a little bit in the last few years where content marketing doesn't quite sound like advertising. There's a latent message that we're the expert, buy from us, but it does sound like more timely, more compelling. Are you sensing that? Are you seeing that shift?
100%. I mean, you know, and your industry is a great example, but you're not alone. I mean, it's most industries where if you go out and you just, like you said, start talking about printing labels or another product, you know, I mean, you're going to lose, you know, nobody's interested in that. The biggest challenge, and this is what I want people to think about, is we're trying to do business on social media. And the first word there is social. So it's very counterintuitive to what we're trying to accomplish. They're there for generally social purposes.
Right.
A little bit more of a relaxed, you know, unbuttoned kind of like, you know, relaxed kind of setting. And you're coming in there with labels, you know, and printing materials and things that it's like, whoa. So
right.
That's the challenge. That's where, you know, opportunity exists. All of your competitors are just doing the standard old stuff. What can you do that's different, that does get my attention? Let me give you a couple examples. It's not fair for me to just say that, you know, what we do in a lot of our agency work is we'll do like Testimonial Tuesday. So every Tuesday we'll have a customer of yours share why they find value in working with you guys. And that might be more meaningful to me as a potential customer. I don't necessarily need to hear from you and all these different things, but hearing from a fellow business owner that you came in and understood what my needs are and helped me save money, let's say, or you know, help me become more green, you know, or whatever the case may be. Those are some things that would really resonate with me potentially. So that's one example. Having some fun, you know, your industry, you know, can be looked at as dated and old fashioned. Have some fun with that. You know, like turn it on its head, own it. You know, if you've got some really funny and interesting people within your team, you know, have a brainstorming meeting and figure out something you can do on social that makes light or some levity. There's so much darkness on social media. If you provided just a little bit of light, imagine, you know, the opportunities that would be there. So those are just two off the top of my head.
That's cool. Especially what you're saying about tone. I think that would stand out right away in the world that we play in with print and marketing services for sure. In your book, your book, Social Media Overload, you shine, and you mentioned this a little bit in the intro to yourself, you shine a spotlight on a truth that I think is really important, that there's so much you could do. You could possibly do lots of stuff. If you listed all of the things you could potentially do on social media, you would burn a lot of paper, right? But businesses are time deprived. They don't have much attention span. They don't a lot of times have the resources to create, look at, etc. content. And because of all that, I don't think it's expected, and it's probably not a good idea in the first place to try to be the master of everything. And you go through this in your book really well. Let's talk about that. There's so many platforms. There's a little time, and maybe an intern creating content. Can you talk about that reality?
Yeah, you actually hit on it really big earlier. So I'm glad you brought it back up, because we didn't touch on it enough, which is figuring out who your buyer persona is before you ever go off and do any sort of digital strategy. The best, you know, little story that I tell is that there was a guy in my audience and he was super hyped up about Snapchat. And I asked him about his audience or who his customers were. And he said that he sells medical supplies to the elderly.
Okay.
And we had
come on, my grandmother's all over Snapchat.
Yeah.
I can't get her off of it, man.
Exactly. So it's like, geez, come on, man. So the first thing we have to do, Darren, is be very, very clear on who our buyer demographic is. Generally speaking, obviously, you know, take this with a grain of salt. I know not all of your customers are the same, but if they're not under 25, Snapchat's not your platform. If they are purely C-level executives and major Fortune 500 companies, LinkedIn needs to be your bread and butter, baby. If millennials is a big part of your market, then Instagram is definitely an environment for you. And then the funny thing about Facebook, and I'll say this, and I'm 41 years old, so I know I'm teetering on both sides of the coin, but Facebook almost gets a bad rap. Everybody's like, so passe,
Yeah.
First of all, the only social media site with more than 1 billion users, that's one. And
Yeah.
two, the people who are anti-Facebook, do you know where they go? They go to Instagram. Do you know
by Facebook? Right.
Facebook. So
Right.
it's, don't worry about Facebook. They're doing just fine. And if they don't got you on Facebook, they got you on Instagram. So that's why I go back to the Phil mentality, Darren, is Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and really figuring that out. And then the other thing that we'll touch on in greater detail during the workshop, but I'll tease it out right now, is having a content calendar. Okay. It's one of the biggest breakthroughs companies have with having steady streams of compelling content is having a content calendar that everybody in the organization knows about, knows which days or which categories, and can help fill that content. That's critical.
That's a great tip. One of the I think the truths that I have been talking about when I talk about social media is, and not just in this industry, but any industry is, and the cool opportunity for a lot of audience members is they don't have to have an intermediary to get their message out. They can be their own publisher. And what you're saying with creating a calendar, they had to think and act like a publisher. That's harder to do than a lot of people realize. Like, I produce a magazine with the team, and we have a content calendar that changes, that gets torn apart, that gets added to, but we try to stick to it. And I don't know where we would be without that calendar. I guess thinking like a publisher is probably a decent mental first step for a lot of these folks.
100%. And even to do a second further, having meetings around that content calendar is also very critical. So you guys, if we're moving into, say, October, and you've got a big event coming up, that content calendar needs to switch to promote that event. You guys, right? And then you switch to November. Now it's follow-up. And hey, these are some of the things to keep the takeaways that you learn going. And then December comes, it's very seasonal, right? And things change. So having a meeting with the team around the calendar saying, what's important right now? What do we need to worry about? Hey, September 11th just happened. We need to make sure that on September 11th, we're not promoting any products or services, that we're honoring, what happened in New York and Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania and so on and so forth. Those are key components that happen during these consistent meetings that are so critical to overall social media success.
Got it. I wrote down in my notes, ask Corey about giving an example of a step. You actually just did, but let me rephrase my planned question differently. Let's say I'm a distributor of printing services, and it's called, Darren's Business Printing Inc. And I sell, lots of stuff to plant nurseries and, auto dealers around suburban Ohio. And I know that social media matters. I have 2 or 3 employees. I sell like $1 million a year, which is pretty much the average that you're going to see in Louisville. What's a first step they can make in terms of the people and a process to try to move like from one toe in the water with social media to having a calendar, having a plan, picking one of those platforms or more that they can really invest in? If they only have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people, like, what is one like crawl phase of the crawl, walk, run that you think is important?
I got to give you, it's a tough question. So bear with me here. I've got 2 things on my mind, but they're very polar opposites. So when you're listening to this, you're either going to like one or the other, or potentially neither, but hopefully one or the other. The first one's more of a personal connection, Darren. As you talk to me about that, and I feel like you as the owner are going to have some good relationships with the nursery owners, maybe some of the what I call VIPs, which if they are a ongoing existing client, why wouldn't you try to deepen that relationship?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you try to connect on a deeper level? And that might be a Facebook connection. And I know that scares some people that are listening to me right now. And they're like, well, first of all, I'm not on Facebook. That's okay. You don't have to be on Facebook. Sorry, I just lost a little of my light, but hopefully we're okay.
That's all right. Sometimes we think really hard.
It happens sometimes. Got to roll with it. So, it's okay if you're not on Facebook. This strategy may not be for you. But if you're teetering on whether or not you should intersect your business and personal life, I'm going to tell you that there are a heck of a lot of advantages to connecting with your, what I call VIPs. These are long-standing client relationships that have earned the right for you to be connected with them personally. If it's not on Facebook, it might be on LinkedIn. But this is a way to deepen the relationship. And it's not just about what you post on social. It's also about what they post.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, when they're celebrating a success, when they're experiencing a challenge, when they're a work anniversary or birthday comes up, man, isn't it nice to be able to acknowledge that? You don't want your best clients to only hear from you at invoice time.
Right.
You want there to be opportunities to connect. So that would be one. And on the other side, I would challenge your folks to do one piece of meaty content per week.
Okay.
It might be a blog article. It might be a video. Those are probably the two most common things. But if you just think about one piece of what I call meaty, it's not like a tweet. It's not like just a thing, but like something that might have 3 to 5 points, and you do that on a video. You might do, if you're a better writer, you do that on a writer. If you hand that to your team, whoever's active on social, that's enough social media content for the entire week. So one good post from you, the expert, Darren, you in this case, would give me enough content to use for a week, maybe 2.
Gotcha. And that would maintain consistency, credibility, all those things. Okay.
Absolutely.
I was thinking of talking to you today, and I was thinking of social media. A thought occurred to me. When I think of social media, I think of the content I consume, the Facebook post, the tweet, the video. But that is the result of something that's happened before, a content calendar, a team meeting, and probably also involves with what's after, tracking, metrics, are we hitting the right audience, that kind of thing. Can you talk about the importance of what happens before and after a post, not just thinking in terms of these are the 140 characters I have, or this is the video I want to create? Like, I feel like it has to be a process.
It totally does. And oftentimes a missed opportunity on the before is knowing what your call to action is going to be.
Okay.
It's a very big mistake that we as businesses make a lot, where we might create compelling content, but people don't know how to follow up with us. They don't know how to, they don't know how to get to the next step. So my dad always taught me, don't make the customer think, kind of bang them over the head and say, hey, if interested, if this is something that resonates with you, let's set up a free consultation, And so every email piece should have a strong call to action. I wouldn't say every social media post should have that call to action, but every few should. Reminders constantly of how to be able to drive more traffic to your website, how to be able to get in touch with you, how to be able to set up a time to meet, whatever the case may be, I think is really good. So I think that's really important. And then the after part of it is, looking at the results and tweaking based upon what happened. And gosh, I'll tell you, Darren, we get surprised every day on what resonates and what doesn't. And the beauty is the numbers are there. The numbers don't lie. And so I'll give you just a quick example. For a long time, we were realizing that purely text-based LinkedIn posts were getting 3 times the engagement for our clients than image or video posts. Now that has changed, but whatever was happening within the algorithm for a period of, say, about 6 months in 2018, we were killing it with just purely text-based posts. And so just by monitoring that data, you can tweak your content and try to fit between what the algorithms are telling us is working for content.
Got it. So next time most people who are watching this, who are in this industry, will see you, you'll be standing up, there'll be a stage, you won't have those knickknacks in the background, you'll probably have like some crazy backdrop that we create. What can people, any other thing you want to mention about your keynote? I know a lot of people are looking forward to it. This is an audience that loves takeaway value. I can tell that you're going to bring it. But is there anything else you want to tease about the keynote?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do a lot of customization for your industry. So I'm gonna ask you guys, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Darren, and ask for a roster of the people who are gonna be in attendance, and I want to take a look at their stuff because it gives me an idea. It's kind of like a doctor looking at x-rays. I want to see your stuff first. I want to see everybody's website. I'm not gonna make fun of anybody or publicly shame anyone. Don't worry about that. But what I am gonna do is internalize what I see and be able to deliver a very custom program based upon what I think the needs are for your group.
Great.
I also recognize with my years with car dealers that if we don't make it fun and entertaining, I lose them in the first 5 minutes. So I can promise you we'll have some fun. I got some cool videos that are just funny and make light of some of the things that we'll talk about, and some interactive exercises just to make sure people aren't sitting on their butts for too long. So we'll definitely do that. But the number one thing I'll tell you is I take this very, very seriously. I bring all my big guns, and I make sure that you leave with an actionable takeaway list that will impact your business.
That's great, Corey. I'm really looking forward to it. I will be in the audience, and I can't wait for it. So thank you again, Corey. I encourage everyone who is watching now or a replay viewer to open a new browser, type in psda.org/P2P. That's P and then the numeral 2, then P. Once again, P2P is coming to Louisville, October 23rd through the 25th. Corey is going to be our keynote speaker. Bring your whole team. We'd love to see all of you there. Corey, other speakers, there's going to be exhibitors, fellow industry pros like you. They will help you return to the office better than when you left it. I think that's the main goal of any event.
Darren, I got one other thing to shout out to you. Just hopefully you'll be okay with it.
For sure.
Let's say 3 people, the first 3 people that register and shout out to me using the hashtag P2P19, you have to use the event hashtag P2P19 and just say, I heard your video, I'm coming and excited. I'll give them free copies of my book, Social Media Overload. I'll sign it and hand it to them when I see them, okay? So let's do that over the next month here or so, how you see this video. If I see it on social, you hashtag the P2P19 and you tell me you're coming, you'll get a signed copy of the book on me.
All right, man, bring those copies. We can't wait to see you there, Corey. Thanks everyone for watching. Thank you, Corey, for joining us. Appreciate your time. Everyone have a great rest of the afternoon. Thanks again, Corey.
My pleasure. Thank you.